to Tucker Carlson Video on Demand. We'll be, sorry, I can't speak. Um, Skip to about 6.5 minutes in, I guess. 8:53 right now. Skip to like 6 minutes in, and Tucker Carlson's gonna start. If you're just joining in the live stream, just hang around. We're about to start. And one more quick announcement: I'll now be streaming Hannity at 10 p.m. Eastern. So get tuned in for that one as well. So that's 2 shows every weeknight. Enjoy. If you're just joining in, the show starts in 3.5 minutes, I guess.
Snowden has it. John Fair, County Mayo, Ireland. Bill, I thought your interview with President Trump was excellent. Your tone was not confrontational, but not cozy either. Hard news interview, John. That's the way it should be. By the way, the entire interview with President Trump, unedited, now posted on BillO'Reilly.com. Sandra Earle, Kissar, North Carolina, can't put Killing the Rising Sun down. Ordered it on Kindle last night, didn't want to go to sleep. Excellent, Sandra. Thanks for reading the book. And finally tonight, the Factor Tip of the Day, another book. As you know, I write about history, mostly American-based. But there is a new book called Imperator Deus by John Prawn about the first Christian emperor, Constantine. Now, it sounds pin-headed, but if you're interested in Roman history, in Christianity, this is a fine book to read. And Mr. Prawn is the father of Fox News correspondent Elizabeth Prawn. So there's a little nepotism involved here, but that's all right. Here's the tip of the day. Always help friends and family when you can. And that is it for us tonight. Please check out the Fox News Factor website, different from BillO'Reilly.com. Also, we'd like you to spat out about the fact from anywhere in the world. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com, O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. Name it down if you wish to opine. Word of the day, no invective when writing to the Factor. Okay, so just let me explain a little bit further because we have about 15 seconds to kill. You saw the Trump interview. It was an edited interview, and we saw it in 3 segments on Sunday, on Monday, and on Tuesday. All of it is together, no edits, top to bottom on BillO'Reilly.com. So if you have some time, you might want to check that out. Again, thanks for watching us tonight. I am Bill O'Reilly. Please remember that the spin stops here because we are definitely looking out for you.
This is a Fox News alert. A federal appeals court has ruled against President Donald Trump, and he is not happy about it. You will hear the president's reaction to the decision, the Ninth Circuit rejection of his travel ban. Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. In just a couple of minutes, Washington, D.C.'s Attorney General will be here to explain why he is fighting the president's ban. Charles Krauthammer will also respond to that. Also tonight, the head of a human rights organization defends his group's claim that President Trump is a top global threat to human rights, and he'll explain why. But first, Fox News correspondent Trace Gallagher on what has happened today in the news with the Ninth Circuit. Trace?
Tucker, the government's key argument was that Washington state didn't have the authority to challenge this because the president has unreviewable authority to suspend the admission of any class of aliens. The court ruled that when it comes to immigration and national security, quote, neither the Supreme Court nor our court has ever held that courts lack the authority to review executive action in those arenas for compliance with the Constitution. President Trump tweeted, quote, see you in court. The security of our nation is at stake. And here's what the president said. Listen close.
It's a political decision, and we're going to see them in court, and I look forward to doing it.
So you believe the judges made a political
We have
decision?
a situation where the security of our country is at stake, and it's a very, very serious situation. So we look forward, as I just said, to seeing them in court.
Okay.
Thanks,
Do you think
guys.
this has undercut the
Thanks,
early
guys.
days of your presidency? This is such a
No,
core issue.
this is just a decision that came down, but we're going to win the case.
And have you conferred with your new attorney general on this tonight? Is he a
No,
part
I
of it now?
haven't. We just heard the decision.
How did you find out about the decision, Mr. President?
Just saw it. We just saw it just like you did.
Via the news, et cetera, the media.
But it's a decision that we'll win, in my opinion, very easily.
And are you?
And by the way, we won that decision in Boston.
So the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and the new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, are about to hold a conference call on the next steps, deciding whether to file an emergency request with the Supreme Court or take this back to the District Court in Seattle. Going back to District Court could tie up this executive order for months. But the Supreme Court doesn't have a tiebreaker, and if the 8 current justices voted 4-4, the Ninth Circuit Court decision would stand. Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton says, quote, President Trump's order to temporarily pause the refugee program and travel from 7 war-torn countries is plainly legal under the Constitution. And Washington State's Governor Jay Inslee responded to the president by tweeting, we just saw you in court and we beat you. Tucker.
Trace Gallagher, thanks a lot for that. Well, one of the people providing the legal opposition to President Trump's executive order is Karl Racine. He's the Attorney General for the District of Columbia. He's one of 16 attorneys general who signed an amicus brief supporting the lawsuit against the president's orders. He joins us now from Washington. Mr. Attorney General, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Tucker.
In the ruling tonight, there was this line, and I'm puzzled by it. It says this: the government has not shown that the executive order provides what due process requires. Now, this order applies mostly to foreigners, non-U.S. citizens abroad. They're in other countries. The question, I think the key legal question here is, does due process as afforded by the Constitution apply to them? And if it does, it has massive implications for a lot of things. How could we ever bomb people in foreign countries, declare war on them, drone them, without giving them due process if they're due the rights the Constitution affords U.S. citizens? Does the court really mean to say that due process applies to foreigners in other countries?
Well, I think the court's focus on due process was related to the impact of this executive order on immigration law. And clearly, with respect to due process applies to citizens in the United States, residents in the United States, as well as individuals who have applied and been granted visas. The court was very clear on that.
So people in foreign countries who are not U.S. citizens, they're not on U.S. soil, but the constitutional protections that we enjoy as citizens apply to them. So would they have standing under the standard you've just articulated to file suit against the U.S. government on the grounds that say, I don't know, we bombed their country? So Iraqis with visas in hand, because our protections apply to them, why wouldn't they be able to sue in federal court in the U.S. for, I don't know, waging war against them?
Sure, Tucker, your hypothetical is interesting. I think it is a world away from the instant executive order related to immigration. The executive order related to immigration and the judge's ruling on due process made it clear that with respect to any person in the United States, citizens, residents, or folks who have been issued visas, whether they be in the States or not in the States, they are required under the law to be protected by due process, notice, and an opportunity to be heard.
So there's nothing theoretical, but I beg your pardon, about the example I just gave. I mean, if they have due process rights, the same ones you and I as U.S. citizens possess, those rights do not just apply to the president's executive orders or to immigration. They apply to the whole panoply of rights granted us by the Constitution. That's a big deal. That means that tens of thousands, potentially millions of people around the world, not allowed to vote here, do not live here, have standing in U.S. courts as citizens. Like, why is that not a huge thing?
Well, Tucker, it's because your hypothetical is so expansive and goes so far beyond the court's narrow application of the question presented that it's simply inapplicable. Why don't we focus on the case and the contesting of the executive order?
That's it. And I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just asking you a sincere question. So due process under the Constitution only applies to visas and immigration when those rights are curtailed by an executive order by the president?
That's what this Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said.
Okay, so explain to me, if you would, in simple terms, what's legally wrong with the president's executive orders? Why are they against the Constitution, or what's the statutory problem with them?
Sure. There's several significant infirmities that the Ninth Circuit found. Number one, the government took the position that the executive order was unreviewable. The Ninth Circuit, citing cases going back to 50 years ago, made it clear that while a president's executive order that impacts national security and immigration is entitled to deference, it is reviewable under constitutional standards. That's point number one. Second point, standing. The court made clear that states have standing to bring actions against the federal government where the federal government's actions will impact the states. And the states of Washington and Minnesota presented compelling evidence of the impact on students at universities, professors at universities, employees, and businesses.
Okay, and that all seems reasonable, but I'm asking, what's the core legal or constitutional problem with the orders in the first place? Why do they contravene the Constitution or existing immigration law? I'm confused about that.
Okay, well, let me try to clear it up for you. What the court also found is that the rationale behind the executive order was not well established, in fact, by the government. The court pointed out and highlighted that in none of the 7 countries at issue did the government present any evidence of any terrorist strike from those countries at to the United States. Under the court's review, under the Constitution, the government needed to provide that evidence and wholly failed to. That's another very important fact here.
Okay, so your position, because you signed on to this in the amicus brief, is that there is no threat from refugees or immigrants from, say, Somalia, even though there have been a couple of pretty recent cases where refugees from that specific country or their children have committed terror attacks or been arrested in terror plots. That's not real. There's no actual threat. It's made up. Is that the position?
No, my position is, and I heard the oral argument, which was an extraordinary teaching lesson in the Constitution, and the judges asked the government lawyer to provide it of evidence of any terrorist act from those 7 countries. And as the opinion makes clear, the government provided no evidence.
I noticed that. That's exactly right. And that may have been a failure of preparation or a failure of sophistication. I mean, they clearly didn't do a good job defending their position. But I want to get back to what the core problem is. Now, you're hearing people argue that the problem with these executive orders is they specify, though indirectly, a religion. It set up a religious test for our immigration policy. And that may or may not be true, but I'm struck by that argument because, of course, we have had explicit religious tests for immigration policy pretty recently. Up until 1988, September of 88, the U.S. government automatically granted refugee status to Soviet Jews because they were victims of persecution. And, by the way, they were. And so we automatically gave them refugee status because of their religion. Was that a bad thing to do?
Well, you know, I haven't really thought about that example, and I certainly don't think it was a bad thing to do because, as you know, the Soviet Jews were being persecuted.
Big time. Right. So why would it be a bad thing to carve out special status for Middle Eastern Christians who are the subject of genocide? And they are. No one disputes that. What's the difference?
Well, this order did not do that, as you know. What this order did, and what the court found, was that there was evidence not only in the order but outside the order, statements by the President of the United States, statements by his aides, that the order, in fact, was discriminatory to a certain religion and therefore elevated religion in a way that is counter to the Establishment Clause of the Constitution.
Right. But as I just said, of course, we've done this before and no one said anything. There is a precedent for singling out people on the basis of their religion for special treatment in our immigration law. And yet this is somehow different, and you haven't explained why. And the other example that people bring up is that somehow this is wrong to specify or bar people by country of origin, and yet, of course, our immigration policy, by definition, categorizes people by country of origin. The 65 Immigration Act is all about country of origin. We're going to take this many from this country and this many from this region. And that, of course, has not been found to be unconstitutional. So why is this unconstitutional?
Well, the 65 Immigration and Nationality Act specifically indicates that while, of course, the government can make decisions on the number of individuals it admits from a country, it cannot discriminate wholly on the basis of national origin. That's been the law since 1965. It's not been contested. And again, if you read the Ninth Circuit opinion, you'll see that the Ninth Circuit, an ideologically diverse court, a very important point, unanimously ruled with the states and against the government's arguments, many of which that you're making tonight.
But wait, I mean, I understand the talking point, but that's just not true. I mean, the Immigration Act of 1990, which was like yesterday, basically 27 years ago, created a diversity visa dedicated to channel immigrants from countries with low rates of immigration to the United States, which is to say it gave favor to some immigrants based on national origin and disfavored others based on national origin. This is our current law. So I don't understand why these executive orders are inconsistent with this precedent. And no one has explained that to me.
Well, and I've got to tell you, Tucker, I appreciate your creativity and certainly appreciate your hypotheticals. The Department of Justice...
That's not hypothetical, it's the law.
Let me just make the point. Your Department of Justice did not make any of the arguments that you made. The Ninth Circuit and the federal court before it evaluated the executive order under well-established principles of the Constitution, and at every instance in the Ninth Circuit, they found that the government's arguments were unavailing. That's the point.
Yeah, but it doesn't get to the core. I mean, for viewers at home wondering what's legal, what's not, what's constitutional, what's not, you've made the case that they made a bad case, and I agree with you, but you haven't explained what the constitutional principles are at stake, and I still don't understand them, unfortunately. And we're out of time, and I wish we had more time.
I look forward to talking to you again.
For joining us. Thanks,
Tucker.
Last week, the forces of tolerance rioted at UC Berkeley to keep Milo Yiannopoulos from giving his political views. Up next, we'll talk to a college Democrat, the leader of the college Democrats, actually, who says his fellow liberals have become regressive rather than progressive. Also, Human Rights Watch says a top risk to global human rights in 2017 is, you guessed it, President Trump. The group's head will tell us what sets the president apart from other autocrats like Kim Jong-un. Plus, Charles Krauthammer here with his thoughts on today's big ruling. That's all ahead. Stay tuned. Well, it's been a week since UC Berkeley literally went up in flames in response to an attempted speech by Milo Yiannopoulos. We spoke to Yiannopoulos immediately afterward, and he had this to say about what had just happened to him.
All sorts of things happened to people who just showed up, not all of whom were fans of mine, but just who wanted to come and just listen to what I had to say. You know, and those people were attacked, physically attacked, right? This is political violence in response to perfectly mainstream opinion.
Well, the aftermath in some quarters was pretty disheartening. Berkeley's campus paper published no fewer than 5 separate editorials defending the use of violence to stop Milo from saying things they disagreed with. One alternative voice to that, though, was Matt Teitelbaum. He's the president of the University of Maryland College Democrats, and he recently wrote a piece, quote, "I'm a liberal and I want Milo Yiannopoulos on my campus." He joins us now. Matt, thanks a lot for coming on. So
Hi, Tucker.
in
Thank you
this
so much for having me
piece,
on.
Well, it's glad to talk to you, and it's reassuring to talk to a liberal who believes in free speech. You say this, you lead it with, my most cherished liberty is free speech. So first of all, God bless you for saying that. Second, why is that such an uncommon sentiment among your fellow liberals? It used to be commonplace. That was the line. I'll die for your right to say something I disagree with. Why is that not heard anymore?
Yeah, well, and that is the crux of my message, that although I really don't agree with the vast majority of what Milo says, really all I agree with him on is his right to speak. I will defend to the death his right to say it. And I will say, I think that with liberals, what's happened is a very small but very loud minority has started to really hurt the conversation and has tried to silence people. And all it's done is, look, it made Milo famous. It's just making this fight tougher for us. So, I'm trying to awaken the silent majority of us that do believe in free speech, that are real liberals, not regressives, to fight back with our words.
Well, I guess I disagree with you on your point about it being a small minority. There's been a lot of polling on this, and the poll I saw yesterday showed that about half of self-described liberals on college campuses believe there are limits to free speech, and those end with what they call hate speech, defined as something I disagree with. How many college classes have you been in where the professor has made a point of reminding the class that free speech is your birthright as an American and that it's absolute?
Well, I go to Towson University, which is an excellent school where, sometimes with students I can tell that there's a lot of sensitivity and that political correctness with certain students who, have definitely been critical of my article since it came out, might trump the right to free speech. But I would say that overall on colleges, again, it's a small minority. Most of the professors I've had, they may not start every class with, free speech is your birthright, but they do say, hey, let's have an open dialogue. Let's not be disrespectful to one another. If you disagree with somebody, engage them in a respectful way. And I'm really glad that I've had professors, great professors at Towson who've done that. And I hope to think, and I'm confident, that it's most liberals and conservatives all across America that believe that. And I want to bring us together around that cause and take the power away from this loud, oh so loud minority.
Yes, and violent, because it's not just that they disagree, it's that they're willing to use force to make certain people they disagree with are not heard. And by the way, without a common agreement on the freedom of speech, you can't have any kind of conversation at all. So what has been the response been to your piece as an avowed liberal, the head of the college Democrats defending free speech? What kind of response have you had?
Well, I've gotten a lot of support because, as I said, I think that it's a majority that hasn't been able to speak out as much because of the violence, as you said, of the minority. But I have gotten some heat for it, and I'm accountable for my words publicly. I'm ready to take the heat. And right now, I think it's important for liberals like me, like other people where other liberals that I admire, like Bill Maher and Dave Rubin, who has popularized the term regressive left. It's important for us to, wake up people like us and say, let's take back the Democratic Party. Let's take back the word liberal so that it doesn't mean regressive, so that it doesn't mean anti-free speech, so that it means, we have our positions. We'll debate you on yours. We're not going to try to silence you.
So you mentioned Dave Rubin. I don't know who he is. I know who Bill Maher is. Those are two people, and good for them, who are standing up for free speech. But what about the actual leaders of the American left? It's political leaders. I didn't hear any of them, not one of them, say, hey, Milo Yiannopoulos ought to have a right to say what he thinks. Like, this is America. Why did nobody say that?
Well, I did, and I'm the president of the College Democrats of Maryland, and I hope that people will follow suit. I hope that maybe people will be watching tonight, and they'll go, you know what, I agree with him. I agree. I'm a Democrat. I'm a liberal. I think people read my article that agree with me. I've heard from people who read my article that agree with me, my op-ed, that is. And I'm very, very hopeful that maybe I'm starting a conversation amongst liberals, along with people like Bill Maher and others, where we say this is not okay. That liberalism means supporting free speech. I really do think there's potential here to nip in the bud this PR problem that liberals have, where everyone thinks we're snowflakes, we're politically correct, the millennials, whatever. I'm trying to start a conversation here about that because it is important.
Yeah, it's vital, and it's more than a PR problem. Godspeed. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Tucker. Thank you so much for having me on.
Ever feel confused by the new age lingo campus activists throw around? Well, now you don't have an excuse, because the words microaggression and safe space are not just activist newspeak. This week, both were added to the latest edition of Merriam-Webster's dictionary. They are official. For example, the dictionary defines, quote, a safe space as a place intended to be free of bias, conflict, criticism, or potentially threatening actions, ideas, or conversations. Sadly, they don't mention them being free of the First Amendment as well, which, of course, by definition, they are. Webster says those and 1,000 other newly added words are intended to reflect the, quote, continuing record of our evolving language, and they do. Well, according to Human Rights Watch, President Trump is, quote, a demagogue, and the world should tremble at the threat he poses to human rights. The group's executive director will be here next to explain what that means. That's coming up next.
We'll be right back, everyone. Yes, safe space and microaggression in dictionary. Woo lad.
Saudi Arabia, Zimbabwe, America. The group Human Rights Watch says the U.S. has become a global threat to human rights thanks to Donald Trump's election as president. The group says that because the president condemns illegal immigration, opposes abortion, and once criticized a disabled reporter from the New York Times, he embodies a threat to human rights worldwide. Well, we're joined now by Human Rights Watch Executive Director Kenneth Roth. Mr. Roth, thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Tucker. Why don't I begin with that introduction? Because, you know, that wasn't really an honest explanation of what the book said. What you're quoting from is Human Rights Watch's annual World Report. It covers 90 countries around the world, including those that you mentioned there. You know, we condemn, you know, Egypt, the atrocities being committed by Putin, Assad's killing of people in Syria, you know, Putin, Erdogan, I mean, a number of the friends of Trump. So in addition, we highlight what we talk about the global rise of populists. And it isn't, oh, just Trump criticized a disabled journalist. It's that there are a group of people, Trump included, but also Marine Le Pen in France, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, Viktor Orban in Hungary, Jaroslaw Kaczynski in Poland, a series of people who are rising in Western countries. And what they have in common is that all of them claim a special insight into what the majority wants and claims that that majority desire, the will of the people, justifies their basically dumping on certain disfavored minorities. We saw that in the case of Trump with his xenophobia, his racism, his nativism, his misogyny, his Islamophobia.
I've heard the lecture.
Yeah, and
but hold on. But wait, stop. You just said I was dishonest in my characterization.
Yes, because in other words, you said that he said Trump is a threat to the world because he mocked a disabled journalist. Now, I think that was the wrong thing to do, but to say that that's because he's a threat to the world, honestly, we think he's a threat to, frankly, democracy in the United States, because I'm not sure that this is a man who actually respects the limits on executive power. But our big concern globally is that this is a man who I don't think wants to stand up for human rights around the world.
Okay, I understand your position, but I just want
for our viewers who haven't read. I'm just describing what the report said.
Right, your World Report 2017.
Exactly.
And I just want to, and look, by the way, I think that there are human rights abuses in lots of countries. I think the U.S. has committed human rights abuses, and I'm glad that there are people watching it. I'm not against monitoring human rights abuses. I'm for it.
And the U.S. is one of the 90 countries that Human Rights Watch covers, exactly.
What I'm bothered by is the distortion of scale and the obviously partisan motives you have, which I think belittle your mission. But I'm going to give you an example. So you devote, on the subject of Zimbabwe, which is an openly racist country committing ethnic cleansing against a minority in the country, as you know, you commit 1,398 words. Cuba, which keeps dissidents in prison, 1,742. North Korea, probably the worst country in the world, 1,609. Iran, 1,896. Saudi Arabia, 2,500. The United States, 3,782 words. So I guess my point is, if it's more than twice the space that you spend describing the human rights abuses in countries that define the term human rights abuses.
Tucker,
it's all out of whack.
Do you really think bean counting words is the measure of how severe somebody's human rights violations are?
It's one measure.
Don't you have to look at what the words say, Tucker?
Yes, and I did.
You accuse me of being partisan. Let's look, for example, I had an op-ed in the Washington Post 3-4 days before Trump's inauguration where I was highly critical of Obama for his failures in a counterterrorism policy in ways that I think make America much less safe. If you looked at that World Report over the prior 8 years, we would have been highly critical of Obama's human rights policies, as we were. So this is not about
you weren't actually, and I read them every year, and you're
not. I know
not.
you didn't call me in for those cases.
You're not highly critical.
Yeah, you were probably happy that I was criticizing Obama. You didn't call me in then.
No, I was actually happy that you're one of the few people on the left who raised concerns about the drone program, which I think are legitimate.
I'm a principled human rights
good for you. Well, actually, you are on the left, and it's obvious from what you write. And let me give you an example. This is Human Rights Watch. This is on your website. Human rights in danger. What is happening to human rights in the world? The United States, Donald Trump is the next president of the United States. He has said many things against human rights. I'm quoting you. He has said, for example, he blamed people who have come to the U.S. from other countries for problems with money and jobs. Well, some of those criticisms are legitimate and rooted in fact and economics. Then you said he made fun of someone with a disability. How is mocking someone or being rude a threat to human rights? I mean, I know you don't like it. I don't like it either. That's not a threat to human rights. Like, what is that?
A president is supposed to uphold the rights of everybody, including the disabled. You don't want a president who, rather than protecting the disabled, mocks them. That's
but
not
he wasn't
about
questioning the rights of the disabled. Now, this is when you're above this. He wasn't questioning the rights of the disabled. By the way, he was a candidate, not a president, when he did this. He was mocking a guy in a rude way. Now, I wouldn't allow my children to act that way. I thought it was offensive. But he didn't question the rights of the disabled. He mocked a specific New York Times reporter.
No,
why are you conflating that with an attack on human rights?
Because he's an aspiring president, and the responsibility of the president is to respect the rights of everybody, including
mocking somebody is an attack on everybody who shares their characteristics? What are you saying?
It's illustrative of a president who is not terribly interested in defending the rights of the unpopular. That's our concern. And whether the unpopulars are the undocumented immigrants or refugees or blacks or women, you know, over and over you saw this disrespect for these people, which is not what you would want in the case of a president whose job it is to uphold everybody's
generalizations rather than, you know, but you're not answering a specific question that I asked.
What's the
question?
And
you're going to the big picture. The big picture was, how was candidate Trump's rudeness to a disabled New York Times reporter, illustrative, as you put it, of his feelings about the disabled generally. How is that undermining the rights of disabled people by mocking one New York Times reporter who's disabled? It's not, actually.
We all
and you're
saw
saying
that
it is.
little thing he did. It was mocking a disabled person, so that is not the kind of respect for the disabled that you look for in a president whose job, among other things,
But how does that undermine their rights? I'm quoting you. How does that undermine their rights?
Let me explain. We'll go back to the report. What we highlighted in that report is that here is first a candidate, now a president, who claims this special insight into what the people want and has used that insight to trample on actual people and their rights. And obviously, these are early days in his presidency, so we're not saying this is necessarily where he's going, but we are worried. And that's the reason we wrote that report. And we are seeing this.
Look, you're not being. I think there are things to worry about, and I think you're the guy to bring those to our attention. But when you start claiming that making fun of a New York Times reporter is an attack on all disabled people, you undermine your credibility.
You're the one who said that. You're the one who said that. I said
it says right here.
No. I said that somebody who mocks the disabled or jokes about groping women or disparages black people as living in these hellholes in inner cities or says that all Mexicans are criminals or treats all Muslims or all Syrian refugees as would-be terrorists, that is not the respect for individual difference that I look for in a president whose job it is to protect the rights of us all, including the unpopular, including minorities.
Including the unpopular. But again, you haven't explained
in fact,
why
a
specific
Tucker,
attack on one person. Look, what you're doing is engaging in a piece of political rhetoric
what does that
rather
mean?
than a sober critique of human rights.
Wait.
No,
Tucker,
because you're committing
you keep coming
politics.
back to politics. You didn't call me in the last 8 years when we were being highly critical of Obama, because I presume you like that. I'm not being partisan. I'm not being political. I'm trying to be principled here and hold every president to uphold the standards of human rights, including for the disfavored.
Let me summarize, almost from memory, your summary of President Obama. You said his one main failing was he didn't do enough to make good, to fix the human rights problems that the previous president left him, that he left the door open for the next president because he didn't ameliorate the human rights violations that President Bush left him. It was basically a partisan statement.
No, one of the questions I had was, for example, Obama never prosecuted anybody for torture. He never closed down Guantanamo. These were major failings on his part. He was not nearly as transparent in his use of drones as we wanted to do. We were highly critical of him in many respects. Now, our concern about... You go back and read our 8 years of reports. You'll see plenty of criticism. That's not the issue.
I have. I read them every year. Let me ask you one last question. I've always wanted to ask you this. Yeah. So the Constitution guarantees, and the courts have upheld this, the right of individuals to keep and bear arms. That is under attack by a lot of politicians in this country who are trying to take away people's right, law-abiding people's right, to exercise their Second Amendment guarantee. That is an attack on their human rights as defined by the Constitution, and I've never heard you stand up against that. Why?
Well, international human rights law, which is what we uphold, which is different from constitutional law, doesn't talk about the right to bear arms. In fact, it talks about the duty of a government to protect the safety of everyone. And if you compare, the epidemic of gun violence in this country with many other countries that have much tighter gun control laws and much greater public safety, you can make the opposite argument, Tucker. You can make the argument that the gun advocates are undermining human rights of Americans.
I know that you make that argument. The First Amendment, though, is a universal right, the right to express your political views. A week ago tonight, Milo Yiannopoulos was prevented from speaking by a violent mob. They wouldn't let him speak. His right to speak freely was abridged. I didn't see any press release from you guys on that, or the many attacks on the First Amendment we see from the left.
Yeah.
Why?
Because we focus on what governments do, not what individual people do. But obviously, the right includes the right of Milo to speak.
It's a state university.
Everybody has a right to speak, even if it's unpopular. I don't differ with you.
Well, I notice you don't. Okay. Thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, Edward Snowden is a hero to many, but could he simply be a top Russian intelligence asset who betrayed America? Our next guest says that's exactly what he was. He just wrote a book on it. He joins us.
Wow, that was a lot of newspeak for one segment there.
We're going to win, win, win. You're going to get so tired of winning. You're going to say,
Mr. President, please,
please,
please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much.
And I'm going to say,
I don't give a damn. We're going to keep winning 100%. America first. We're going to make America great again. Make America great again. Make America great again. Make America great again.
I'm sorry. We're going to keep winning because we're going to make America great again.
Make America great again.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more. We're going to win so much.
It is time for this incredible woman to step into the role that she is meant to have. And as it is...
Oh shit, it froze. Alright, here we go, ready?
It's time for this incredible woman to step into the role that she is meant to have. And
we, all of us, are gonna help her get there.
Okay.
Here she is!
Hey, guys. I've been talking so...
She didn't deny she said this awful thing. Instead, she blamed Honest Abe Incan. Honest Abe. So Hillary Clinton, for lying, blamed Abe Lincoln, commonly known as Honest Abe Incan. Honest Abe.
I love Mexican people.
I wouldn't go to France. I wouldn't go to France. Because France is no longer France. France is no longer France. Do you want to go back to them, or do you want to stay with Donald Trump?
Trump.
Hold up. Hey, hold up, hold up. Hold up. Listen up. Hey, hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Everybody sit down and be quiet for a second.
This is the moment we choose hope. Choose hope. Choose hope. Choose hope.
Well, it's been 3.5 years since Edward Snowden walked off to Russia with a vast trove of American secrets, more than 1 million pages of them. He's still a hero to many, and groups like the ACLU and Amnesty International have called upon President Obama to pardon him before leaving office. Obama didn't. Now, a new book aggressively questions the idea that Snowden was any kind of hero, saying that he deliberately sought to steal American secrets before accepting Putin's offer to defect to Russia. Edward J. Epstein has dedicated his life to investigating a lot of things, including journalism. And he just released his latest book, How America Lost Its Secrets, Snowden, the Man, and the Theft. And he joins us now. Edward J. Epstein, great to see you.
Nice seeing you, Tuck.
You point out in your book that in some ways Snowden did the American public a favor by proving that the U.S. government was in fact spying on the population and doing so secretly. But then you make the point that he went way beyond that and damaged American national security. Why didn't he stop at the public service part of what he did?
Well, I think one has to acknowledge that there's always a silver lining to every cloud. But the cloud was really a very dark thunderstorm in terms of what happened to American intelligence because of the damage purposely and deliberately inflicted by Snowden.
And it was purposeful and deliberate. You demonstrate, and you talked to him, you went over to Russia. What was his motive exactly?
I don't really know Snowden's motive. I'm more interested in his actions, why he took these documents. There were 1.5 million files
according to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, that he removed. Once he removed these files, they were compromised, and the entire communications intelligence of the West shrunk by that amount. So why did he do this? What he did is basically fly to Hong Kong. He made a pit stop there where he managed to make himself the poster boy of whistleblowing for American journalism. They never could see the whole story. They never asked what happened to the other 1,440,000 documents he didn't give journalists. Why did he go to Russia? The one thing I am sure of is that his going to Russia was done as a Russian-supported operation.
Yes, and you demonstrate that. He boarded an Aeroflot plane with an invalid passport, and that only could have happened with the complicity of the Russian government.
Not only
right?
that,
but
sorry,
what happened to the rest of the documents? You say only a small percentage made it into the hands of journalists. Where are the rest? Were all of them released?
Well, that's the trillion-dollar question, because in the murky world of espionage, we don't really know who gets which documents. We don't know if they went to Russia, China, if they were divided, if he threw them into the sea. But the damage was that basically the military, the Pentagon, had to spend 5 months going through 1,500,000 files. Every source, every method had to be canceled. It was a huge destructive exercise that happened, and we've suffered because of it.
So I didn't understand from what you wrote why the NSA would have given Snowden, who was not an employee but a contractor, access to what you described level 3 secrets, the highest level secrets. Why would they have let him handle those or have access to them?
Snowden somehow learned that another contractor, Booz Allen Hamilton, had a contract to work on level 3, which are secrets without sources and where the sources and methods aren't taken away. So he purposely switched jobs. He said that. He changed jobs to get at the lists of computers that were being penetrated by the NSA. So he went after, they didn't accidentally come before him. He targeted and went after the sources and methods, which are the crown jewels of any intelligence service and incredibly important to communications intelligence.
Yeah, more even than we may understand. Edward J. Epstein, thanks a lot for coming on tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Tucker.
Up next, we'll talk to Charles Krauthammer about today's ruling out of the Ninth Circuit Court and what it means for the Trump presidency and you. We'll be right back.
Like me from previous months, okay? Total control. Bing, bing, bong, bong, bing, bing, bing. You know what that is, right? Bing, 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 bong.
Oh, you've seen this in switching. 1 second. There we go.
When do we beat Mexico at the border? They're laughing at us, at our stupidity. Bing, bing, bong, bong. This guy was sweating so badly. It was disgusting.
Hi, this is Ted Cruz calling. I was calling to encourage you to come out and vote on election day.
everybody saw us beating, let's say, China. I beat China all the time. Believe me. China.
This is a Fox News alert. A federal appeals court has upheld the block on President Trump's travel ban from 7 Muslim-majority countries. The past year and a half, of course, has given ample proof that the president is not deterred by a setback, even those that would have destroyed more timid politicians. It's no surprise, then, that he immediately vowed to fight on, ironically saying he would see the court in court. Has the president finally found a fight that he can't win, and where do we go from here? To tell us, we're joined by columnist and Fox News contributor, Dr. Charles Krauthammer. Charles, thanks a lot for joining us. So what exactly is the court saying here? I'm trying to understand what the central objection to the president's executive order is.
Look, I think this is a disgraceful conclusion because what they did is they substituted their judgment as to what constitutes a threat to American security for the president's. Now, we were all interested in what they think, but that is irrelevant to the case. The case was, does the president have the authority to do it? And if he does, it's his judgment to make. And that's the plain reading of the law. It's the plain understanding of the Constitution. I think the policy was unwise, but that's irrelevant.
Right.
I think it is very clearly legal. This is the most left-wing, most overturned court in the country. So I think for the administration, and considering that Trump does not like to lose, I think he may want to go to the Supreme Court, which may not be the most tactically wise way to go. But you know that he tweeted out, "See you in court." Well, I'm told that the governor of Washington State just tweeted out, "We did go to court and you lost." Now, that is sure to get a rise out of the president. And I suspect out of a matter of pride, he's going to want to go to the Supreme Court, where I think his chances may be dicey. So there's just no slam dunk, even though I think if we had a full court, if we had Scalia, or if we have the new justice, he would win. But we're not sure where it goes. Remember, as you know, Tucker, if the high court splits 4-4, then the ruling of the Ninth Circuit, the one we got tonight, stands, and the president loses.
Now, I've heard some speculation about the case that the Justice Department lawyers, the career attorneys from DOJ, made before the appeals court. And I've heard a number of people, attorneys, say it wasn't a very apt case. They didn't do a very good job, and they seemed a little light on detail. And at one point they were asked, well, name the threat. Be more specific about the threat that the U.S. may face from these 7 countries. And they didn't seem to have the facts with them. Do you think it's possible that they didn't make a very good case, and that they didn't make a good case because they don't believe in the case?
Well, on the first question, I was listening in to the oral arguments, and the Trump side, the federal government side, was, I thought, exceedingly weak. I don't think they were throwing the game. I don't think this is a guy who went in there deliberately to lose. I think this was a junior guy. I'm told the top 2 were unable to do it for whatever reason, had to recuse themselves. And remember, I think this is a mistake, a tactical error by the administration. You don't go into a decision like this, executive order like this, where you know you're going to get sued. You know you might get stayed, unprepared. They did it before having an attorney general in place, so they are dependent on the career people who are not necessarily the top of their class. I don't think this was a guy who was playing the 1919 White Sox, throwing the World Series. I think he just wasn't. He was a minor leaguer who was, had to bat in the World Series.
Charles Krauthammer, thanks a lot. Coming up next, CNN's Chris Cuomo had an unfortunate day when he tried to equate the term fake news with racism. Maybe the press shouldn't have used it so much 3 months ago. We'll show you that blunder right after the break.
Ooh, this next one is good, guys. Chris Cuomo on CNN New Day said saying fake news to us is racist, even though the mainstream media is the one that created the term and used it to mock Trump-supporting news. So we've actually culturally appropriated them, to use their vocabulary. Just a reminder, I'm streaming Hannity, but the stream will be restarted, so you have to click on my channel and click on the new stream after Tucker's over.
Well, just 3 months after the press force-memed fake news onto the American public, a member of the media has tried to equate it with, of course, racial slurs. Background, today, President Trump labeled Chris Cuomo of CNN a purveyor of fake news for not pressing Senator Richard Blumenthal aggressively on his claim that he served in Vietnam when he didn't. In response, Cuomo said this.
Fake news is the worst thing that you can call a journalist. It's like an ethnic disparagement. You know, we all have these ugly words for people. That's the one for journalists. And David, he just keeps doubling down when the facts don't favor his position.
You insulted me. I'm Rosa Parks. Well, the man who once claimed it was illegal to read WikiLeaks emails soon learned he'd made another mistake. Just a few hours later, Cuomo apologized, saying the pain of being called a phony was, quote, nothing compared to the pain of a racial slur.
And thanks, Tucker. This is a Fox News alert by upholding the suspension of the president's temporary travel ban. Also tonight, we have an important opening monologue about congressional Republicans and how they need to roll up their sleeves and start to go to work and fulfill President Trump's promises to you, the American people. That's coming up. But first, President Trump is reacting to tonight's ruling by tweeting out, quote, in big letters, "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake." Now, President Trump also said this tonight.
The security of our country is at stake, and it's a very, very serious situation. So we look forward, as I just said, to seeing them in court. But it's a decision that we'll win, in my opinion, very easily.
And are you in?
And by the way, we won that decision in Boston.
And joining us now with reaction from the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, and the president of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, is with us. Jay, we have both been predicting for days now the Ninth Circuit, the most liberal court of appeals, the most overturned court in the country. It would act this way. We both felt that the government, the DOJ, did not argue it as effectively as you or I would have argued it. Of course, Attorney General Sessions was not in play in this, but he would be going forward. What's your reaction?
Yep. So now we have an Attorney General of the United States that has a couple of decisions to make. Number one, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision, I think, is incorrect as a matter of law, clearly. In fact, they say in their opinion that the TRO may, in fact, have been overbroad. In other words, striking down the entire executive order may have been overbroad, but it's not their job to fix it, when actually that's exactly the job of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, if the TRO is too broad, is to strike those portions that are overbroad. And the government did ask for that in the argument as a fallback position, so it could have been done. They did not do it. That's number one. Number two, they rest the case on two premises. Number one, that the state's ability to bring the litigation in the first place rests on the fact that students and university faculty may be impacted by this, and they go into the whole discussion about the government not putting forward evidence of harm. The reality is the Somali student at Ohio State University that committed those acts was from Somalia, one of the 7 countries of concern that were listed in the executive order. So they were wrong as a matter of fact. The next thing that's important here is they disregard the White House directive explaining the executive order, which exempted from its effect those with green cards or valid visas for entry. And they said, we have no basis upon which we can accept the executive action taken by the White House counsel in the directive. That really doesn't impact this. Now, there's 2 ways to fix that. You know what the president could do, Sean, tonight? Issue a new executive order, put in those exemptions, and put it in place tomorrow, and make the states relitigate this at the Ninth Circuit. Would they lose? Yes, but it clears up any confusion, and up to the Supreme Court you go, where you win 8-0.
You know, Tom, let's talk about the president. And he has the constitutional, statutory ability to do what he did here. And is this a case where you believe the left went judge shopping by going to Seattle, knowing that any appeal would go to the Ninth Circuit, the most liberal court in the country, appeals court in the country, for the very purpose of undermining the agenda? In other words, is there a partnership among judicial activists and those liberal activists that want to stop Trump's agenda?
Well, to be clear, the leftist infrastructure allows them to go judge shopping all at once across the country. This is only one of many legal challenges. Obviously, they had the best chance in a sympathetic ideologically sympathetic district out like in the Ninth Circuit. But I think the most troubling aspect to this political decision, Sean, is the attack on the president's status as commander-in-chief. He and the administration has said there is a national security interest here in allowing this executive order to go forward. And this court has second-guessed that. And that is a power they don't have a right under the Constitution, and the president is well within his rights to criticize the courts who act like politicians. No one hired these courts to be commander-in-chief, and if they want to downplay the threat of terrorism based on their own predilections, their own biases, that's not something they're supposed to do. They've got to defer to the president on this national security matter. The fact they didn't is egregious.
Constitutionally of a president is to be the commander-in-chief.
Yes. Amen.
And we have spent a lot of time on this program, Jay Sekulow, going over the law, 8 U.S.C. 1182. By which they predicated this executive action, and it couldn't be any more clear.
Which they ignore, by the way, in this opinion, really.
They totally
completely ignore it. Let me say something else.
Well, let me put it up on the screen.
The Court of Appeals are the ones that have created the constitutional crisis. They created the constitutional crisis.
Let me read it for our audience, if I can. When the president finds that the entry of any aliens or any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may, by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as migrants, as immigrants, non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem appropriate. This is not the law could not be clear. It's not for a judge to make this decision. They do not have the constitutional authority to do this.
Yeah, the fundamental problem here is the district court judge and now the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, again, not shockingly, has created their own constitutional crisis. A showdown between the President of the United States as Commander-in-Chief under Article 2 of the Constitution and the statutory authority you just read, and the Ninth Circuit exercising their judgment instead of the President's. That's not the way the government is structured.
And the refugee program is a disaster. It's like playing Russian roulette. We are not vetting the refugees in any serious sense. We rely on the United Nations to do the core vetting, and then we run off of their files to figure out whether these people should be here or not. This is a dangerous game the court is playing. I guarantee you the terrorists in those affected countries are going to flood the refugee zone to try to get in here before any courts rule in Trump's favor.
Absolutely. And, you know, terrorists may be evil, but they're not stupid. And I've said fundamentally what the whole issue comes down to here, Jay, is the inconvenience of a few non-American citizens versus the willingness to gamble with the lives of the American people. And what the judges have decided here, and Democrats have decided, they're willing to gamble.
Yeah, well, but the Ninth Circuit has taken upon itself to decide that they are now going to override the President of the United States when the Constitution and the statute are clear. And you've read it multiple times, but there is no question about the statutory authority here. But let me add one other thing, and I think this is the fundamental aspect of this. This constitutional crisis has been established not by the administration, but rather by the district court and the Court of Appeals. But the president can moot that whole issue out tonight by issuing a new executive order, meeting this burden, and then let them fight it out again. And that may be one way to resolve this. I trust the Attorney General's recommendation and advice on this, no matter which way it goes.
Yeah, and Tom, you know, let's look at the practical potential consequences here. Because what they are is, if God forbid somebody comes into this country from one of these 7 countries where we know they harbor terrorists, where terrorist training takes place, and even President Obama, the list actually came from him and his administration. If God forbid an American is killed, I am saying what needs to be said here. They will have blood on their hands. They will be responsible because they are not putting as their top priority the safety and security of the American people. Do you agree with that?
I agree, and you don't have to believe President Trump on this. Believe the appointees of President Obama, who over the last 2 years have repeatedly warned that the refugee program is susceptible to terrorist manipulation. They've warned it specifically about the Syrian program. They've worried people have already slipped in under the refugee program. So this is serious. And by the way, your listeners and viewers may not know this. Once you're a refugee here in the United States, you're required to seek permanent residency. This is a pathway to citizenship. This isn't a temporary refuge. if you're here, you're here forever, practically speaking. And this is something that we have no way of protecting the American people from in terms of the terrorist threat, because the courts right now have allowed or stopping the president from ascertaining whether someone is a terrorist threat from places like Syria, Yemen, and the worst of the worst.
All right, guys,
because
stay right
these
there.
courts are in denial of what's really going on in the world right now. The Ninth Circuit's in denial. So is the district court judge. They live in a world they wish it was, not the world that it actually is.
The nation's
Jay, I would actually say it a different way. I think it's a pre-9/11 mindset. That's how dangerous this
It
is.
is.
Guys, stay right there. We'll have more with Jay Sekulow after the break. Also, Michelle Malcolm will join us, weigh in on tonight's appeals court ruling, plus our opening monologue, a little delayed, that you do not want to miss tonight on how Republicans in Congress need to take President Trump's lead and start working much harder for you, the American people. And also, later tonight, a video Senator Elizabeth Warren does not want you to see. It sheds her false claims about the now Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and a protest breaks out in Phoenix over the deportation of a convicted criminal illegal alien. That and more on this busy news night tonight on Hannity.
News Alert. I'm Jackie Ibanez in New York. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals rejecting the government's case to lift the stay of President Trump's travel ban. Mr. Trump vowing to keep fighting in court. This is what White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer had to say when asked if they would take it to the Supreme Court. Listen.
We're going to have to examine our legal options. That's what our counsel's office is doing now to make sure that we know what the best legal route to do is. But there's potential options. The president's fairly committed to this, extremely committed to this, rather, because he understands that this is what needs to be done to make sure that our country's kept safe.
But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is calling on a plan they can all agree on, tweeting this, quote, President Trump ought to see the writing on the wall, abandon proposal, roll up his sleeves, and come up with a real bipartisan plan to keep us safe. I'm Jackie Ibanez. Now back to Hannity.
This is a Fox News alert. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has made its ruling by upholding the suspension of President Trump's temporary travel ban. Also tonight, my opening monologue on how congressional Republicans, they need to get moving and on board with President Trump's agenda and start working a lot harder for you, the American people. That's coming up. But first, back with us, Jay Sekulow with the American Center for Law and Justice. Also joining us now, syndicated columnist Michelle Malkin. Michelle, first, your initial reaction to this very predictable decision by this radical left-wing court, the most overturned out on the left coast.
I'm appalled, but I'm not surprised. And the phrase that Justice Scalia talked about, social transformation without representation, is ringing in my mind and ears, and it should across America. The idea that two liberal states, Minnesota and Washington, could step in on behalf of poor, moany universities that are inconvenienced because their foreign students can't get into the country, somehow trumps President Trump's fundamental duty to protect America. It just shows you that judicial tyranny has run amok, and these men and women in black robes, as Mark Levin, our friend, has warned about for so long, need to be reined in. The American people no longer have a voice in immigration. The idea that there's a constitutional right for millions of people, whether they're refugees or short-term visa holders or legal permanent residents, to get into this country, it is destroying the foundations of our country,
Jay,
and our control
let
and our
me go back to you and the president's tweet tonight, which in big bold letters will see you in court. Now, there is an option. I want to talk about going forward. They can go fact-finding, go back to the district level court, or they can, would it be more advantageous for them to go to the U.S. Supreme Court, something we've been talking about? It would first end up in the hands of Anthony Kennedy, and then he would have a number of options. If he does bring it before the entire Supreme Court, then, without Neil Gorsuch, it could be a possible 4-4 split and a risk for the administration. What would you advise?
Yeah. Well, my advice would be twofold. Number one, if you read the opinion, and I have thoroughly, 1182F that you keep citing, the statute that gives the president authorities not even discussed
mention it
in this ninth, not even discussed. Like it doesn't exist.
Crazy.
So number one, there is a fundamental flaw in the opinion. But to answer the question on what do you do next, if I was advising the president, I would look at two options here. One is reissue the executive order to exempt out green card holders and visas because they're not taking, the Ninth Circuit rests its holding on the fact that the White House counsel's directive is not binding. So fix that if you think you need to. And then they have to mooch the case out. They've got to relitigate it. You would still lose before this Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, but everybody loses that's on the right side in front of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and you end up at the Supreme Court. At that point, I think you win 8-0. The risk right now is if Justice Kennedy gets the petition of the stay, he would probably refer to the entire court. A 4-4, as you said, Sean, is a tie. A tie is a loss. So there's only 7 days left in this TRO. They could also submit the record at the trial court and fight it out there. But I would really look at reissuing this executive order tonight.
Also, in the interim, you could have the possible confirmation of Neil Gorsuch on the court, which may make it less of a risk. Explain why those provisions that you're citing or the slight changes you're discussing you think goes from 4-4 to 8-0. Why?
Because the one area that was not clearly set forth, although it was clear what the intent was, the courts have said, and the president later explained through the White House counsel, was the provision, and they said it does not apply, and this came in a directive, not in the order, that the executive order would not apply to green card holders, those with residency, allowed residency visas. So that is not in the executive order. That was in a directive. Put it in the directive. Put the directive into a new executive order. Make it crystal clear. It doesn't apply to that small class of individuals. And then the Supreme Court has no choice. It's 1182F. The statute's clear. The Constitution's clear. What the Ninth Circuit, as liberal as they are, and as wrong as this opinion is, they hold the whole case, basically, on the fact that they're not taking the White House counsel's directive as valid.
Right.
That's really what they say at the end of this. They acknowledge, by the way, Sean, that the order, the TRO may well be too broad. They're just not going to fix it. So you could get it reversed, but I think maybe clean it up, moot the case out tonight, and you're back in business tomorrow morning.
All right, let me go back to Michelle. Let's look at this from a political vantage point. I have been showing this. The Washington Free Beacon put it out. And what they did is they went down to Florida, where David Brock and top Democratic donors were meeting at a ritzy resort, and they call it Democracy Matters, Strategic Plan for Action. And basically, this was designed, their words, to kick Donald Trump's ass in the next 4 years and look at possible ways of defeating Trump through impeachment. But then also a big part of their strategy is filing lawsuits against the Trump administration. I think Jay and I both agree, and I'm sure you probably agree, this is a classic case of judge shopping, which is why it started in Seattle, knowing it would go to the Ninth Circuit. How, looking at the bigger picture, should the administration be anticipating a lot more of these types of lawsuits being filed, and how should they best handle it?
Well, of course, this is how the left operates, and they've been infesting law schools and academia and brewing these activist judges and lawyers in hatcheries for decades now. And so the idea of turning around that Titanic, I mean, that is going to be a decades, if not half-century or century-long process. And I think this is a wake-up call and a call to arms for all young patriots out there who are trying to figure out what to do in their lives. We need constitution-based law students out there to try and claim back that balance. It's been a demographic overwhelming happening there. But look, it's not just the district level courts and lower courts, it's the immigration courts themselves. I mean, in the immigration lawyers community, in the David Brock and George Soros world, there's a phrase, it goes like this: it ain't over till the alien wins. These people never stop.
If they don't cite the law, then it's so mind-boggling to me, but very predictable. Guys, thank you both. I've got to go.
Thanks, Sean.
When we come back, a very important delayed opening monologue to the show tonight on how Republicans in Congress need to get their act together and start working harder for you, the American people, and also tonight.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions, welcome to the White House.
All right, Jeff Sessions finally sworn in as the Attorney General, despite Democrats using dirty politics to try and derail his confirmation. We're going to play you the tapes that disprove what fake Pocahontas, Senator Elizabeth Warren, said in her nasty attacks. Also, we'll check in with Larry Elder, Eric Guster. They're here to weigh in, and also tonight. Last night, protests broke out in Phoenix, Arizona, after an illegal immigrant who's a convicted felon was detained by ICE for deportation. That and more on this very busy news night, straight ahead on Hannity. And welcome back to Hannity. So President Trump, he's moving very fast to fix the country and keep his promises to you, the American people, while congressional Republicans seem to be sitting on their hands and doing nothing. You know what? Enough is enough. It's time for the GOP to get moving and keep up with the speed of Trump. And by the way, that's tonight's, well, delayed opening monologue. Now, President Trump, he said he'd shake up Washington and actually get things done for once in Washington. Why? By launching a shock and awe campaign against the status quo and against the establishment. Now, President Trump, he's only been in office for a little over 3 weeks, and here's a list of what he's accomplished so far. He ordered federal agencies to ease the burden of Obamacare. He's taken action to freeze new and pending regulations. He kept a promise. He withdrew the U.S. from TPP. He's instituted a federal government hiring freeze. He's banning U.S. non-government organizations from receiving federal funds to provide abortions abroad. He has signed 5 executive actions which advance the Keystone and Dakota Access pipelines. He's issued executive actions on the construction of a border wall, stripping money from sanctuary cities, all promises. He's taken executive action on extreme vetting, as you know. He's used executive action to rebuild the military. He's ordered a draft plan in 30 days to defeat ISIS. He's imposed a 5-year lobbying ban for administration officials. And a big promise, he nominated Judge Neil Gorsuch to the U.S. Supreme Court. And he's also set up task forces to fight drug cartels, reduce violent crime, and prevent attacks against police officers. In other words, President Trump gets it. He wants to move quickly. He wants to get things done. The question tonight is, where are the Republicans in Congress to help him? I don't know about you, but I have lived my entire life with a sense of urgency. And by the way, so does every single person that works on this TV show and on my radio show. In all the years that I've been broadcasting, I've only taken a handful of lunches. Who has time for lunch? And it's usually a meeting with my boss. 99% of the time, I eat lunch at my desk. And by the way, so does everybody that works on this show, because nobody has time. We're so busy working because we want to put the best show possible on the air every night. That's our job. And I'm sure for you, the American people, it's the same way. Because in the real world, you don't do your job and do it well, you're going to get fired. So how is it possible that President Trump, he's accomplished so much in such a short amount of time, and his so-called Republican allies in Congress have done nothing? Now, what's worse, well, is now congressional Republicans are now saying that a bill to deal with Obamacare may not be ready till the end of the year. And they're also saying instead of repealing and replacing it, many of them are now saying, well, we'll repeal and repair the disastrous health care law. You've got to be kidding me. Repair? For nearly 8 years, Republicans have been saying they were going to repeal and replace Obamacare, a solemn promise to you. And on top of making those promises, Republicans also repeatedly said that if you, the voters, if you give them the White House, the Senate, the House, they would abolish Obamacare once and for all. Well, guess what? You spineless, gutless, timid politicians have all three. They have the House, the Senate, and the White House. What's their excuse now? Now, you know what President Trump's plan is. He wants more competition, portability, erasing state lines, healthcare savings accounts, and I can recite his agenda, which we've all heard throughout the campaign since November the 8th, better than these Republicans can. And that's pretty pathetic. Now, they have had years to come up with a replacement. So you Republicans, why don't you have a consensus plan by this time? You know what? The American people are suffering. They voted for you to fix this disastrous healthcare system, and you should have had a plan in place. Then there's President Trump's tax plan, for example. Republicans are also dragging their feet on that. They're saying, well, they can't start on a bill until maybe the spring. Really? What the hell is taking you so long? President Trump is ready to act on his promise. And here, for example, is what he said earlier today.
Lowering the overall tax burden on American business is big league. That's coming along very well. We're way ahead of schedule, I believe, and we're going to be announcing something, I would say, over the next 2 or 3 weeks that will be phenomenal in terms of tax.
You see that? The president's working. He's ready to move quickly and pass his agenda. So why can't Republicans in the House and Senate get on board? Now, just like with health care, Trump's tax plan, it's simple. Lower the income taxes for middle-class Americans. Go from 7 brackets to 3 brackets. Reduce the corporate tax rate to 15%. Allow multinational corporations to repatriate trillions of dollars sitting overseas at a low rate of 10% so they build factories and manufacturing centers here in America. Delaying the tax cut, what does that mean? That means the odds of it actually getting passed are going down. And more importantly, it means delaying the much-needed economic recovery. Now, let me remind these inept Republicans what this election was all about. The forgotten men and women, the millions of Americans out of work, on food stamps, in poverty, who can't afford to buy a home. Delaying these tax cuts means delaying the ability for tens of millions of Americans to fulfill the promise of the American dream. The sooner you write and pass a tax bill means the sooner corporations, companies will be incentivized and have extra money to build those factories in places like Michigan, in places like Ohio and Pennsylvania, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to create jobs for Americans who desperately want to get back to work. Now, the concept is simple. But Republicans, why are you making it so difficult? Tonight, it's time to lay a marker in the sand. I'm putting the GOP on notice. No more excuses, no more explanations. Go to work, roll up your sleeves, and do your job. There's no excuse for not having a plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. There's no excuse for not having a tax cut plan. There's no excuse for not having a plan so we become energy independent, or a plan to reduce the size and influence of government. You have the House, you have the Senate, you have a president that wants to work, who's moving fast, which is everything you asked the American people for years. So it's time to stop worrying about yourselves. And it's time now to focus on the taxpayer. You know what? It's time for you to forget. I know we pay for your long lunches and your barbershop and your workout centers. Roll up your sleeves and go to work like every other American. We have a president now moving at the speed of light. Congress sitting around playing that bureaucratic political game while Rome is burning and the country continues its precipitous decline. President Trump is doing everything he can do to keep his promises. This is a monumental opportunity for the country. So my question is, why can't you members of Congress keep up? I've had it up to here. I've had it with all of you. All talk, no action, politicians, as Donald Trump said during the campaign. If you can't do your job, guess what? Go back to wherever the hell you came from, because the American people are sick and tired of inaction. They voted for change, and they want to shake up Washington. Do your job or go home. And coming up tonight, we have a tape that fake Pocahontas, Senator Elizabeth Warren, does not want you to see because it disproves the false narrative that she has been saying about Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Larry Elder, Eric Gusto, they'll weigh in next, and also later tonight.
I'm directing Department of Justice and Homeland Security to undertake all necessary and lawful action to break the back of the criminal cartels.
President Trump cracking down on the drug cartels, and last night protesters took to the streets in Phoenix after an illegal immigrant was detained by ICE for deportation. She was a convicted felon. We'll get reaction from Lou Dobbs and David Horowitz as we continue on this very busy news night tonight on Hannity.
Alright, everyone, stay with us. We're going to stream the rest of Hannity, and from now on, weeknights, we'll do Tucker Carlson and Hannity. So enjoy the show, subscribe if you watch those two shows, and we'll see you every weeknight. Yeah, I'm not leaving, that's not what I meant. I meant I'm streaming the rest of the show and then leaving. Too many people just said bye. My bad. It's not what I meant. Yeah, I'm not leaving. I'm streaming the rest of Handy, then leaving.
No agenda, no cheap shots, and no spin before the Super Bowl and on the Factor. Bill O'Reilly asked the real questions, and tens of millions got real answers from our 45th president. America's most watched and most trusted news channel is Fox News Channel.
It is with great pride, very great pride, that I say these words to you right now. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, welcome to the White House.
That was President Trump earlier today at the White House during the swearing-in ceremony of Jeff Sessions. He is the Attorney General. Now, the left tried to demonize Senator Sessions throughout his entire confirmation process, and they're not letting up. After the Senate confirmed Sessions yesterday, well, Senator Elizabeth Warren took to Twitter and wrote, quote, "Consider this my warning. We won't be silent. We will speak out. We will persist." And Senator Chuck Schumer had this to say last night.
When Jeff Sessions was passed, it turned my stomach.
Joining us now, nationally syndicated radio talk show host with the Salem Radio Network, Larry Elder, and trial attorney and political commentator, Eric Guster. You know, Eric, I guess maybe we'll start with this. Let's listen to and watch Rule 19 be broken by Pocahontas, or fake Pocahontas, Senator Warren. Take a look.
Mr. Sessions has used the awesome power of his office to chill the free exercise of the vote by black citizens in the district he now seeks to serve as a federal judge. This simply cannot be allowed to happen. Mr. Sessions' conduct as U.S. Attorney, from his politically motivated voting fraud prosecutions to his indifference toward criminal violations of civil rights laws, indicates that he lacks the temperament, fairness, and judgment to be a federal judge.
All right, then after Rule 19 was invoked by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, well, then she said, well, you can't quote Coretta Scott King on the Senate floor. Here's one little problem. Here's what Coretta Scott King had said about Jeff Sessions.
To President Martindale, to Senator Sessions, to Mayor Bright, Troy State Chancellor Jack Hawkins Jr., Dr. Dorothy Height, Ms. Johnny Carr, Juanita Abernathy, Ms. Mamie Teal Mobley, to all of the distinguished program participants and guests in this audience today. It's a great honor and privilege for me to join you in celebrating the grand opening of the Rosa Parks Library and Museum.
Larry Elder, I think that says a lot that Coretta was saying it's a great honor and privilege for me to join you in celebrating the grand opening of the Rosa Parks Library Museum, which Jeff Sessions spearheaded.
Well, Sean, this is a man who, when he was a state attorney general in Alabama and then U.S. attorney, successfully prosecuted the Klan. He hired the first black counsel to become chief counsel of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And in 2009, he received a governmental award of excellence from the NAACP. Awkward. What they're doing, of course, is playing the race card because they can't run on the economy. Under Obama, between 2010 and 2013, black net worth fell 25%. Regarding voter ID, the majority of blacks want voter ID. Black parents want vouchers, which is what the Trump administration is talking about. And when you look at issue after issue, even abortion, black Democrats are more likely to be anti-abortion, pro-life than their white counterparts. So the only thing they've got is the race card. Malign the other side, call the other side bigoted, and hope people ignore things like school, crime, safety, and jobs.
Eric, I don't even know how you respond to that. I mean, here's a guy. Oh, that's very easy. Look at the list. Hang on. Look at the list that Larry Elder just told you. And this despicable, predictable attack, racism, sexism, misogyny, xenophobia, homophobia, Islamophobia. You know, if you think that's going to win you elections, I think you're just so far off course. Because it's not true what they're saying about Jeff Sessions.
Larry did a wonderful job of deflection, but this is about Senator Sessions. Well, now Attorney General Sessions. Attorney General Sessions was wanting to be a federal judge. That was his confirmation hearing in which Coretta Scott King wrote this letter. That was Elizabeth Warren reading the letter that Coretta Scott King wrote. Now, when you played a greeting for the Rosa Parks Museum, whoop-de-doo, she said, I'm pleased to be here. But that may not, that doesn't change the fact that does not change the fact that he prosecuted blacks for voting.
Here's what's fascinating. Larry, you tell the facts. You talk about a guy that prosecuted the Klan. You talk about a guy that stood up on numerous occasions for civil rights pioneers and leaders, and it doesn't matter. They'll still smear you. They'll still call you a racist.
No, again, no, that's not the case, Sean.
Sean, that's all they've got because, again, the reason Donald Trump got a higher percentage of the black vote than John McCain did and Mitt Romney did is he started talking about jobs. He went into the inner city, started talking about schools. Black parents and brown parents living in the inner city realize that these governmental schools are underperforming and they want out.
Let's
they
stay
want
on topic.
choice. And Republicans are talking about that.
All right.
Let's stay on topic about AG Sessions. No,
I'm just
he
saying.
has a smear. He does not represent African Americans well.
You're smearing,
and we're afraid of
your
the
slander, the besmirchment of the left doesn't work anymore.
No,
Good
we're
luck
talking
with it.
about his record.
Coming up next.
We're talking about his record.
Right here on Hannity.
I'm directing Department of Justice and Homeland Security to undertake all necessary and lawful action to break the back of the criminal cartels.
President Trump signing an executive order to crack down on drug cartels. Well, our Hannity producers, they did a ride-along with the Border Patrol in Arizona. You get to see firsthand how bad things are. Now, while filming, the agents intercepted 400 pounds of drugs. Also, protests breaking out in Phoenix last night after ICE agents detained an illegal immigrant who was convicted of a felony for deportation. Up next, we'll get reaction from the one and only Lou Dobbs on this busy news night.
Alright, everyone stay right here. We'll be back with last 15 minutes of Hannity. Enjoy.
directing Department of Justice and Homeland Security to undertake all necessary and lawful action to break the back of the criminal cartels that have spread across our nation and are destroying the blood of our youth and other people, many other people.
All right, that was President Trump earlier today announcing a new executive order that will be used as a tool to crush violent drug smuggling cartels. Now, President Trump had promised to deport illegal criminal aliens, and last night in Phoenix, protesters, they blocked federal vans carrying a longtime illegal U.S. resident and a convicted felon who was set to be deported back to her home country of Mexico. Joining us now with reaction, Fox Business anchor, our good friend Lou Dobbs, and the author of The Big Agenda, President Trump's Plan to Save America, which is a great book. A great friend of mine, David Horowitz. Guys, good to see you both.
Good to see you. Thank you, Sean.
All right, Lou, you've been all over the issue of illegal immigration, and you also understand business as well as anybody that's on television today. This is a case of identity theft. I know people that have had their identity stolen. And when it happens, it in some cases takes years to get your good name and reputation back. It takes years to take care of credit cards that were used in your name. It takes years to fight to get your retirement money back or your savings account money back. So this is not a small crime. She didn't respect the sovereignty of the United States, the laws of the United States, and then came here and committed fraud against Americans.
And there's a general acceptance in the community, if you will, of her doing so, because, in fact, millions of illegal immigrants in the conservative number is call it 1 million. We're talking about 1 million Class 6 felonies for every fraudulent Social Security card, every fraudulent identification, many of them stolen. And if this were done by a citizen, if this felony were committed by a U.S. citizen, the consequences would be perhaps even more severe. There would not be discussion about separating this woman from her family. She would be going to prison. If she's a U.S. citizen, here she's being deported. It's really quite a remarkable sense of entitlement that has grown up around the issue of illegal immigration, which is, of course, breaking the law to enter the country, further breaking the law and committing a felony to defraud the government and create fraudulent identification of any kind.
You know, David, we've been friends a lot of years. I don't know if a lot of people know your background and in your experience and being a hardcore leftist. And it really dovetails into your book. Everything Trump is doing is being met with this type of reaction, this anger, this fight, this vitriol. So my question to you is, how do you deal with all this when all you're really doing is enforcing the law? And what is Trump to do?
Just what he's doing. The great thing about Donald Trump, which I describe in my book, and which you can just see, is that he's not intimidated by the attacks of the left. We're in the midst of one of the big witch hunts in American history. Jeff Sessions, one of the most decent human beings in the Senate, a champion of civil rights, is defamed and slandered as a racist by Elizabeth Warren, who's making a career out of character assassination. We have in this country a large hate America left. And it dovetails with the Democratic Party as a party of hate. Trump looked in the cameras during the second debate and said, you have to understand, Hillary has tremendous hatred in her heart. That was one of the wisest things he said. He was referring to the basket of deplorables. But the whole Democratic Party looks on people who disagree with it as racist, sexist, homophobes, Islamophobes. That's why we can't have a civil discussion in America anymore.
Let me ask both of you this question, though, and I dealt with this in my monologue earlier. He does have a big agenda, David, and he isn't keeping his promises, and he's moving at the speed, I'll call it the speed of Trump. And Congress is just digging in their heels, and the bureaucracy and the wheels of the bureaucracy don't even move. What is your message to Republicans that can't seem to keep up with what the president's doing?
I'm worried about them. They've got to. Look, how refreshing is it, how amazing to have a politician come into office and then work around the clock. A guy gets up at 5:30 in the morning, works till midnight through the weekends, delivering on his promises. It's not as though he said one thing on the campaign trail the way Obama did, and then does a completely different thing when he's in the White House.
Lou, let me get your take on that.
Leader.
I think this is, you know, Lou, one of the things you and I have complained about politicians for years, and I can't believe after 8 years of Obamacare, they don't have a consensus plan to put before the American people, and they say, well, maybe sometime late this year.
We're talking about, as you know, we're talking about a deficiency of leadership in the Republican Party, whether it be the House or the Senate. We're coming to terms with that, and I believe that we're seeing on the Senate side some movement. I'm not quite sure what we're seeing from Speaker Ryan. But the fact is that if they do not get in line and follow the agenda of President Trump, it will be the greatest missed opportunity. This is a dream come true to have a man of Mr. Trump's values, his leadership, his energy, and his faith in the country and our people, and for him to be frustrated on any level here by his own party would be, to me, criminal. I think that we're going to see things get better steadily, not as fast as any of us would want, but week to week, I think the president is making immense progress.
You know, great point on both of you. But I got to go, but I love the book, by the way, David. Big agenda, and I read it over the weekend. Here's my message to them. Move at the speed of Trump or go home, because you're useless otherwise. Anyway, thank you both for being with us. Appreciate it. And coming up, we have a very important question of the day as we continue tonight right here on Hannity. All right, time for tonight's question of the day. So, do you think the president's temporary travel ban is necessary to help keep you, the American people, safe, not gamble with your life and inconvenience maybe a few people? We'd love to hear from you. Go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, @Sean Hannity on Twitter. Let us know what you think. That's all the time we have left this evening. As always, thank you for being with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hi everyone, thanks for watching the stream. Come back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, Tucker Carlson tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern, Sean Hannity. Hope you guys all enjoyed, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you for watching.